I'm Louis. I'm 69 years old, and I've learned that the people you sacrifice everything for can become strangers overnight. I spent $80,000, a huge chunk of my retirement savings, or so they thought, on a first-class family vacation to Hawaii. But when we got to the airport, my son Adam handed me a $20 bill and said, "I forgot to buy you a ticket, Dad. Just go home." They left me standing there. They thought they were leaving a broke, confused old man behind. They had no idea who they had just crossed. The next day they had 85 missed calls, and their nightmare was just beginning. Before I tell you how this happened, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And please hit that like button and subscribe if you believe that underestimating someone is the biggest mistake you can make. The fluorescent lights of the JFK International Terminal hummed above me. It was 7 in the morning, but the place was buzzing with an energy I could feel right under my ribs. It was excitement. Pure, simple excitement. At 69 years old, you'd think I'd be past this kind of giddiness, but this trip was important. I gripped the worn plastic handle of my suitcase. It's an old Samsonite, a deep faded blue, the kind with only 2 wheels that always wants to tip over. It's been with me for 20 years. It was the same one Sarah, my late wife, and I took on our honeymoon to this exact same place, Hawaii. I looked over at my family, and the contrast couldn't have been sharper. My son Adam, his wife Megan, and my grandkids, 16-year-old Tyler and 14-year-old Brooke. They were surrounded by a fortress of sleek, brand-new aluminum-sided luggage, the kind that spins in 360 degrees and probably costs more than my first car. "Dad, keep up," Adam called out, not looking back. He was already striding toward the first-class check-in counter, his shoulders squared in his expensive suit. Coming." I hurried, pulling the wobbly suitcase behind me. This whole trip was my idea, my gift to them. 10 days at the Four Seasons in Maui. First-class tickets for everyone. $80,000. I'd transferred the money directly into Adam's account 3 months ago to handle all the bookings. "You're better at this computer stuff than I am," I'd told him, and he'd smiled. "Sure, Dad. I'll handle everything." He thought that $80,000 was my entire life savings, the fruit of a long, frugal life as a retired office manager. He didn't know it was just a fraction of the interest I'd made last quarter. My wife Sarah and we built a tech logistics company from nothing right out of our tiny garage in Queens. We sold it 5 years ago. The final payout was $50 million. We had made a promise to each other long before the money ever got that big. We would never let it change us. And we would never tell Adam until we were absolutely sure he'd grown into a man who valued hard work, not just handouts. Sarah passed from cancer before we ever got the chance to tell him. So I kept the secret. I kept living in my small, rent-controlled apartment. I kept driving my 15-year-old Toyota. I did it to honor her memory, and I thought to protect him. But watching Megan, my daughter-in-law, tap her expensive stiletto heel on the marble floor, I had a sinking feeling. Megan, she was different. She worked part-time at a small art gallery, but carried herself like a Fortune 500 CEO. She despised my simple life. I could see it in her eyes every time she visited my apartment, which wasn't often. "Louis, this place is just quaint," she'd say, her nose wrinkling at my old recliner. My grandkids Tyler and Brooke were already plugged in, white earbuds, faces buried in their glowing phones. They hadn't said more than a mumbled hi to me all morning. "Next," the airline agent called from the first-class counter. Adam and Megan pushed their mountain of metallic luggage forward. The agent smiled a bright, practiced aloha. "Mr. and Mrs. Morgan," Adam said, sliding his passport across the counter. They got their boarding passes. The kids got theirs. Then it was my turn. I pushed my old blue Samsonite onto the scale. "Louis Morgan," I said, smiling at the agent. She was a young woman with a kind, professional face. She typed into her computer, her brow furrowed. "I'm sorry, sir. I don't seem to see a reservation for you on this flight." I chuckled. A simple mistake. Oh, it must be under my son's booking. Adam Morgan. He booked for all of us. She typed again. Her smile faltered. I see the rest of your party, sir. Adam, Megan, Tyler, and Brooke. 4 tickets. First class. But I have no ticket under the name Lewis Morgan. The hum of the airport faded. My excitement turned to ice. That can't be right. I paid for 5. Could you check again, Morgan? Adam walked over his face, a mask of annoyance. Dad, what's the holdup? We need to get to the lounge. Megan wants a mimosa. She says there's no ticket for me. Adam's face went through a rapid, strange series of emotions. First irritation, then a flicker of something. Was it panic? Finally, it settled on a look of exaggerated theatrical shock. He snapped his fingers and lightly hit his forehead. Oh my God! Oh no, Dad! He grabbed my arm and pulled me a few feet away from the counter, his voice dropping to a harsh, urgent whisper. What is it, Adam? What's wrong? Dad, I don't know how this could have happened. I think I forgot. The words hung in the air, cold and sharp. Forgot you. Forgot, yes, I was booking everyone else, the hotel suites, the transfers, the first-class seats. There were just so many moving parts. I must have forgotten to confirm your final ticket. Megan stalked over her face like thunder. Adam, what is going on? The agent won't take our bags until the entire party is checked in. I forgot Dad's ticket, he mumbled, refusing to look at her. Megan's eyes widened, but not in sympathy for me. It was pure fury directed at him. You what, Adam? Are you incompetent? We talked about this. She stopped herself, her hand flying to her mouth, but it was too late. We talked about this. The phrase hit me harder than the forgotten ticket. I turned back to the agent, my hands starting to tremble. Ma'am, it's okay. It's fine. Can I just buy a new ticket right now? Any seat will do. Coach is fine with me. The agent typed again. She shook her head this time with genuine pity in her eyes. I'm so sorry, Mr. Morgan. The flight is completely sold out. Oversold, in fact. There isn't a single seat left on this plane. My heart sank. The next flight to Maui. Not until tomorrow afternoon, sir. And I'm only seeing one available seat in economy. Tyler, my grandson, finally took off his headphones. Wait, so Grandpa isn't coming. His voice wasn't sad. It wasn't disappointed. It was relieved. My own grandson was relieved I wasn't coming. Brooke didn't even look up from her phone. Adam, I said, my voice shaking a little now. You used the money I sent, right? The $80,000. Of course, Dad. Of course, he said way too quickly. It paid for their tickets, the resort suite. It was just a mistake. A terrible, terrible mistake. I must have missed the last confirmation email. Megan grabbed his arm, her nails digging into his suit jacket. Adam, we are going to miss this flight. The kids have been looking forward to this all year. She turned to me, her smile so tight it looked painful. Lewis, this is just a horrible mix-up. But we can't just cancel. The resort is non-refundable. The tickets are non-refundable. I'm not asking you to cancel, I said quietly. Adam can stay back with me. We'll fly out tomorrow on that economy flight. You and the kids go ahead. Megan laughed. A short, sharp, ugly sound that made people at the next counter turn and look. Don't be ridiculous, Lewis. Adam has the meetings. Meetings? I asked, confused. I thought this was a vacation. You told me it was a vacation, Adam. Adam shot her a murderous look before turning back to me, his face pleading. A few work meetings, Dad. Just to, network while we're there. It's nothing. Look, he said, turning me physically away from the counter. It's a mess. I feel terrible, I really do. But we have to go. We'll make it up to you, I promise. We talked about this. Adam has the meetings. Tyler's look of relief. It wasn't a mistake. It was a plan. They were leaving me behind. They took my $80,000 and they were leaving me behind. Okay, I said. My voice felt hollow, like it was coming from somewhere far away. You all go. Have a good time. Adam's entire body sagged with relief. Oh, Dad, thank you for understanding. You're the best. Look, we'll bring you back a souvenir. A really, really nice one. He reached into his pocket. He wasn't wearing his usual worn leather wallet. This one was new, sleek black alligator skin, the kind that costs $1,000. He fumbled inside past a thick wad of cash and pulled out a single crumpled $20 bill. Here, he said, pressing it into my hand. This is for the taxi home. I'm really sorry, Dad. He didn't hug me. Megan gave me a quick, dismissive pat on the shoulder. We'll call you from the resort, Lewis. Take care of yourself. Tyler and Brooke were already walking toward the security gate, not even bothering to say goodbye. Adam and Megan grabbed their shiny new suitcases, turned, and followed them. They didn't look back. Not once. I stood there alone in the middle of the bustling terminal. A 69-year-old man holding a $20 bill with his faded blue suitcase at his feet. They had taken my money, lied to my face, and abandoned me as if I was garbage. I looked at the $20 bill in my hand. Then I looked at the first-class lounge they were heading to. I felt the ice in my chest solidify. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was rage. A cold, patient, and very, very wealthy rage. I didn't take a taxi home. I walked to a different counter, pulled out my own phone, and dialed a number from memory. Hello, Mr. Thorne, I said, my voice perfectly calm. Yes, it's Lewis. I need you to book me a flight. To Hawaii. Tonight. I paused, watching them disappear through security. And Thorne. And I need a car waiting for me in Maui. No, not a car. I want a helicopter. I have some family business to attend to. I stood on the curb outside the terminal, the chaotic noise of JFK fading to a dull roar in my ears. The $20 bill Adam had pressed into my hand was crumpled and damp with my own sweat. $20. The price of my love, my sacrifice, my $80,000 gift. It was the fee for my dismissal, like tipping a bellboy I would never see again. I watched the line of yellow cabs, the ones that would take me back to my small, quiet apartment in Queens. Back to the life they thought I lived. Back to being the simple, harmless, broke old dad. I let out a short, dry laugh. It startled a woman next to me. I crumpled the $20 bill into a tight ball and let it drop into the gutter. I didn't walk to the taxi line. I walked past it, past the Ubers and the Lyfts, to the black car service lane, where the gleaming sedans waited. A driver in a dark suit stepped out of a Mercedes S-Class as I approached. He didn't look surprised to see me despite my old jeans and my faded blue Samsonite. Mr. Morgan, he said, his voice respectful as he opened the rear door. It's been a while. A pleasure to see you, sir. Thank you, James, I said, sliding onto the cool leather. The usual spot, please. Of course, sir. The St. Regis. He took my wobbly suitcase, handling it with the same care he would a brand-new aluminum one, and placed it in the trunk. As we pulled away from the curb and merged into the traffic heading for Manhattan, the anger began to settle. It was no longer a hot, sharp sting. It was becoming something else. Something heavy, cold, and immensely powerful. They thought I was a fool. They thought I was a burden they could just shrug off at the airport. They thought I would go home to my tiny apartment, perhaps cry a little, and then wait patiently for their call, grateful for any scrap of attention they threw my way. My son Adam. He had looked at me with pity. Pity while his pockets were full of my money. My daughter-in-law Megan. She hadn't even bothered to hide her contempt. And my grandchildren. They were just relieved the old boring grandpa wasn't tagging along to cramp their style. The skyline of Manhattan grew closer, a wall of glass and steel that always reminded me of what Sarah and I had built. This was our city. James pulled up to the private residence's entrance of the St. Regis. The doorman in his full uniform rushed to open my door. "Good afternoon, Mr. Morgan. Welcome back. We've kept the penthouse ready for you just as you like." "Thank you, Michael," I said, stepping out. I walked into the lobby. Marble floors so polished you could see your reflection. A massive crystal chandelier, the scent of fresh lilies and old money. This was my real home, the one Adam had never seen. I took the private elevator straight to the top. The doors opened directly into my apartment. It wasn't an apartment. It was a 3,000-square-foot penthouse overlooking Central Park. I dropped my keys on a glass table. The walls were lined with art. Not just pretty pictures, but a small Rothko, a de Kooning. Sarah and I had collected them when they were just emerging artists. A black grand piano sat in the corner, its surface gleaming. I walked past the state-of-the-art kitchen, the one Adam and Megan knew nothing about, and went straight to the built-in bar. I poured myself 3 fingers of Macallan 25. The bottle alone cost more than Megan's monthly salary. I took the glass and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. The entire park was spread out below me, a sea of green and gold in the afternoon light. $50 million. That was the number, not counting the art, not counting the properties in London and Zurich. And my own son, my only son, thought I was worth $20. He thought I was an office manager. I let him think it. I let him believe I was just scraping by on a small pension. I wanted him to be his own man, to find his own success, to not be the lazy, entitled son of a rich man. It seemed I had failed. I hadn't protected him from greed. I had only hidden the target. And in his desperation, he had turned on the only person he thought he could bully. Me. He and Megan with their desperate, flashy lifestyle. The leased BMWs, the apartment in Tribeca, they couldn't afford the designer clothes for the children. I'd always wondered how they paid for it. Now I knew. They were starting with me. They wanted me gone so I wouldn't be an embarrassment at their meetings in Hawaii. They needed my $80,000 not for a vacation, but for something else. Something desperate. And they were stupid enough to think I wouldn't find out. They were stupid enough to think I was just a simple old man. I took a sip of the scotch. It burned a warm path down my throat, but it couldn't touch the ice in my chest. I took my phone out. A sleek top-of-the-line model, not the old flip phone I used when I was around them. I dialed the number I knew by heart. "Mr. Thorne's office," a crisp voice answered. "It's Lewis Morgan. Put him on. It's an emergency." I walked over to the mantelpiece past the heavy dark wood desk. There was only one photograph I kept in this penthouse. It was Sarah. We were standing in front of the empty garage in Queens that would become our first office, 25 years old, and stupid with hope. She was wearing denim overalls with a smudge of grease on her cheek, her hair tied up in a bandana. She was smiling, a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes and made you feel like you could conquer the world. She was the genius, you know. I was the logistics man, the numbers guy. But Sarah had the vision. She saw the future of global logistics technology before anyone else. We built it together from that empty garage, working 20-hour days, fueled by cheap coffee and a shared dream. We always laughed about how we were millionaires on paper long before we ever felt like it. We still drove our old Toyota. We still bought our groceries at the local market. When the money became real, truly real, when that first 8-figure offer to buy the company came in, we sat at our small kitchen table in that same Queens apartment. "Louis," she said, her hand covering mine. Her hands were always warm. "We have to promise each other something. We cannot let this thing ruin our boy." Adam was a teenager then, a good kid. Maybe a little soft, a little too eager to please, but a good kid. Sarah was terrified of what inherited wealth did to families. She'd seen it. "It's a poison, Louis," she insisted, her voice quiet but fierce. "It makes people weak. It makes them cruel." I want our son to be something, not just have something. So we made the promise. We would live simply. We would set up the trusts, the investments, the offshore accounts. Mr. Thorne would handle everything. But Adam would know nothing. He would learn the value of work. He would build his own life. When she got sick, all the money in the world meant nothing. I would have burned all $50 million to the ground just to have one more day with her. The best doctors, the private jets to clinics in Switzerland. None of it mattered in the end. She died in our bedroom in that small Queens apartment, holding my hand. Her last words to me weren't about the money. They were about Adam. "Keep him safe, Louis," she whispered. "Don't let him lose his soul." So I kept the promise. I kept the secret. I finalized the sale of the company after she passed. I kept this penthouse in Manhattan as my real base of operations, my fortress of solitude. But I kept the Queen's apartment. It was my cover. It was my anchor to her, the last place I felt her warmth. I played the part. I was Louis Morgan, retired office manager. I gave Adam help when he needed it. A few thousand for a down payment on his first car, a little extra for his rent when he moved out. I always made it seem like a stretch. Now, son, this is dipping into my principle. I'd say, so be careful with it. He believed it. He never questioned it. Why would he? I was just his simple, quiet, frugal old dad. And for a while it worked. He got his degree. He started his own small consulting business. It wasn't setting the world on fire, but he was paying his bills. He was his own man. And then 5 years ago, he met Megan. The very first time he brought her to the Queen's apartment for dinner, I saw it. I saw it the moment she walked through the door. She wasn't looking at Adam with love. She was looking at my apartment with calculation, sizing it up. She was all polite smiles and, "Oh, Louis, this is just so cozy." But her eyes were cold. They scanned my old furniture, my worn-out recliner, my small, dated kitchen. She was sniffing for money. And when she smelled nothing but old wood and my microwaved dinner. Her disappointment was so obvious it was almost suffocating. She asked questions. "It must be hard getting by on just a pension. Is this the only property your family owns? Does Adam have any other relatives?" She was a predator, and she was furious that her prey was so small. I watched her change my son. It was slow at first, a subtle poison. Suddenly, Adam was too busy for our Sunday dinners. Suddenly, my apartment wasn't secure enough for the grandkids to visit often. She made him ashamed. Ashamed of me. Ashamed of the simple, decent life I had pretended to live. He started dressing differently. That ridiculous alligator skin wallet he had at the airport. That was Megan. The leased BMW he couldn't possibly afford. That was Megan. The whispered, urgent phone calls about money. That was Megan. She pushed him into a world of debt and appearances, feeding his insecurities, whispering in his ear that he deserved more, that he was better than his simple father. And Adam, my son, the boy I had tried so hard to protect, he let her. He let her break him down and rebuild him into this stranger, this desperate, lying stranger who could stand at an airport with my $80,000 in his account and hand me a $20 bill to go home. I took a long, slow sip of the scotch. The ice in my chest had a name now. Its name was Megan. But Adam was the one who made the choice. I set the empty scotch glass down on the solid marble of the bar. The click was sharp in the silence of the penthouse. I looked at the phone, the one they didn't know I had. It was time. I didn't hesitate. I dialed the number. It rang twice. Thorne. His voice was exactly as I remembered it. Crisp, efficient, no wasted words. Arthur Thorne had been my lawyer, my financial advisor, and my closest confidant for 30 years. He was the only man on earth besides me who knew the full extent of my wealth. He was the architect of the financial fortress Sarah and I had built. Thorne, it's Lewis. There was a brief pause on the line. Lewis, you're calling me from the ground. Shouldn't you be halfway over the Pacific by now? I thought today was the big Hawaii trip. I walked back to the window, looking down at the tiny yellow cabs streaming around Central Park. They looked like little insects from up here. There was a change of plans, Arthur. A significant change of plans. What happened? His tone shifted instantly. He wasn't my friend anymore. He was my counsel. Are you all right? Oh, I'm fine, I said, my voice flat and cold. My health is excellent. My finances are secure. But my family, it seems, is in a state of moral collapse. I told him everything. I kept my voice steady, relaying the facts as if I were describing a quarterly business report. The arrival at JFK, the new luggage, the conversation at the check-in counter, the look of relief on my grandson's face, and the final, staggering insult. He forgot the ticket, Arthur. My own son, who I gave $80,000, forgot my ticket. He forgot, Thorne repeated. I could hear the disbelief in his voice, followed by a deep, weary sigh. I knew what he was thinking. Go ahead and say it, Arthur. You warned me. I'm not saying I told you so, Lewis, he said, though we both knew he was. I'm just appalled. For 5 years, I've watched that woman Megan sink her claws into him. I told you she was a financial black hole. I showed you the credit reports. I know, I said. I wanted to believe. I wanted to believe my son was stronger than that. I wanted to believe he was still Sarah's boy. He is, Thorne said, his voice softening for a moment. But he's also a weak man who is terrified of his wife. This has her fingerprints all over it. She wanted you out of the picture. She's ashamed of your simple life. It's worse than that, Arthur, I said, swirling the last drops of scotch in my glass. This wasn't about shame. This was about something else. This was organized. What do you mean? They needed me gone, I said, thinking back to Megan's slip. Adam has the meetings. They needed me left behind holding a $20 bill, looking like a victim. They needed the $80,000 for something else, something that wasn't a vacation. I continued. Adam knows I'm not a fool. He knows if I had gotten on that plane and found out the money was gone, the game would be over. No, he needed me off the plane. He needed me in Queens in my little apartment, where I couldn't interfere with whatever scam they're running in Hawaii. Thorne was silent, processing. Lewis, you're right. This is deeper than just leaving you behind. This is fraud. $80,000 is a felony. I don't care about the money, Thorne. The money is replaceable. What they did is not. So what is the play, Lewis? What do you want me to do? This was it. The pivot. The moment the old passive Lewis died, and the man who built an empire took over. I want to know why, I said, my voice dropping to a growl. I don't just want to guess. I want to know. I want to know what meetings Adam is having. I want to know who he's meeting with. I want to know where every single cent of that $80,000 went. I want to know every debt he and Megan have, every late payment, every desperate loan. I want to know who they're lying to. You want me to run the full workup, Thorne said. It wasn't a question. I want the complete financial autopsy of my son's life, Arthur. I want it by morning. It'll be expensive. We'll have to use the international team if they're meeting with investors. I don't care what it costs, I said, looking at the setting sun reflecting off the skyscrapers. I just paid $80,000 for a lesson. Now I'm going to find out what I bought. I'll get started immediately, Lewis. Where are you? I'm at the St. Regis. I'll be here. And Arthur? Yes, Lewis. Tell the team to be thorough. When I'm done, I want them to understand what happens when they mistake kindness for weakness. I hung up the phone. I looked back at Sarah's picture on the mantelpiece. I kept him safe for as long as I could, my love, I whispered. Now I have to teach him. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Sleep felt like a luxury I hadn't earned. I sat in the deep leather armchair in the penthouse living room, the one Sarah had always called the throne. I didn't turn on the lights. I just watched the city far below, a silent, sprawling galaxy of electric diamonds. The night was cold, but I felt colder. I kept replaying the scene at the airport, the look on Adam's face, that terrible, practiced look of surprise. I forgot. My own son. My mind kept turning over the $80,000, a sum that to him must have seemed like my entire world, a sum he thought I had scraped together from a lifetime of frugal living as an office manager. He had no idea. He had no idea that $80,000 was what I spent on a painting at a charity auction last month, just because Sarah would have liked it. He thought I was simple. He thought I was harmless. He thought I was poor. At 4:15 in the morning, the secure phone on my desk buzzed a low, urgent vibration that cut through the silence. I had been waiting for it. I didn't hurry. I walked over to the desk, my reflection moving like a ghost across the dark windows. I picked up the receiver. Lewis. I have it. Thorne's voice was sharp. No greeting. He had been working all night just as I had been waiting. Are you ready for this, Louis, because it is exactly as you suspected, only worse? I'm ready, Arthur. Give it to me. All right, he said. I could hear the rustle of papers. Let's start with your $80,000. I tracked the wire transfer from your savings account, the simple one you let him know about, right into his personal checking account 3 months ago. Did he buy tickets, Arthur? Did he book the resort? I asked, though my heart already knew the answer. No, Lewis. He did not. The money sat in his account for exactly 48 hours. Then $75,000 of it was wired out in a single lump sum. 75,000, I repeated. The number felt heavy, ugly. To whom the Four Seasons? No, Thorne said, his voice grim. To a holding company based in Las Vegas, Apex Capital Ventures, which is a very polite name for a loan shark operation, Lewis. The remaining 5,000, well, my team is still tracking it. But given the new luggage and that alligator wallet, I think we know where it went. I closed my eyes. The theater of it all. The elaborate lie. He had lured me to the airport knowing I had no ticket. He had performed that pathetic little scene just to get rid of me, to make me a problem he didn't have to deal with. So he's in debt, I said, my voice flat. He needed the money to pay someone back. There was a pause. A terrible, heavy pause. Louis, Thorne said, and I could hear him sigh. He didn't pay them back. That's $75,000. That was just the interest payment. The blood drained from my face. I sat down heavily in the leather desk chair. Interest on what? Let's go back, Thorne said, his voice all business now. Adam's consulting firm. Morgan Strategies. It's a ghost, Lewis. It hasn't filed taxes in 2 years because it hasn't had a single legitimate client. It's a shell. A complete fabrication he and Megan used to justify their lifestyle. But the apartment, I whispered. The cars. The private school for the kids. How? Debt, Lewis. Mountains of it. He's not just in debt. He's functionally bankrupt. He has been living a complete lie for at least 3 years, ever since he married that woman. Megan, of course. Her contempt for my quaint apartment, her expensive clothes, her constant subtle pressure on Adam to be more, to have more. She hadn't been pushing him to succeed. She had been pushing him to spend. How bad is it, Arthur? Tell me the number. He owes $200,000 to that Las Vegas group, Apex Capital. They are not nice people, Lewis. They specialize in high-risk clients, gamblers, desperate businessmen, the kind of people who don't have collateral. The interest rate is predatory. It's criminal. $200,000. My son. The boy I taught to ride a bike. The boy I helped with his algebra homework, the one I'd sat with for hours when he had his first broken heart. He had gotten himself into a hole so deep he was dealing with loan sharks. He must have been desperate. I whispered the words, tasting like ash. He was, Thorne agreed. My team pulled the communications. They gave him a deadline. The deadline was yesterday, Lewis. They were going to visit him in New York. That $80,000 you sent wasn't a gift. It was a ransom. You paid them just enough to keep the wolves at bay for one more month. It all clicked into place. The nervousness at the airport. The forgotten ticket. He wasn't just leaving me behind. He was hiding. He was running to Hawaii using my money to buy himself a few more weeks of safety. So he lied, I said. It was the most obvious statement in the world, but I needed to say it. He's been lying to you for years, Lewis. This wasn't a sudden fall. This was a long, slow rot. Megan has 2 credit cards under her maiden name that are maxed out at over $50,000. They haven't paid their co-op fees in 3 months. They're on the verge of being evicted from that apartment they pretend to own. I thought of all the times he'd called me. Things are great, Dad just closed a big deal. Megan's gallery just sold a major piece. Lies, all of it. A house of cards built on my perceived simplicity. He never asked me for help, not real help. He never came to me and said, Dad, I'm in trouble, I failed. I'm scared. If he had just been honest, I would have helped him. I would have paid it off. I would have gotten him into financial counseling. I would have helped him start over the right way. That's what a father does. But he didn't. He didn't see me as a father. He saw me as a mark. A simple, foolish old man he could squeeze $80,000 from one last time before his entire world imploded. He didn't just lie to me. He lied to Sarah. He spat on her memory. He spat on the very values she died trying to protect in him. He had become the one thing she feared, a weak man, a cruel man, a man whose soul was for sale. Lewis, are you still there? Thorne asked, his voice pulling me back from the darkness. I'm here, Arthur. The ice was back harder this time. What's the next step? Do we call the police, report the fraud? We can have his accounts frozen by noon. I looked at Sarah's picture, her bright, honest smile looking back at me from the mantelpiece. No, I said, my voice low and steady. Not yet. He's running a scam in Hawaii. He thinks he's safe. He thinks I'm sitting in my apartment in Queens, worried about my heating bill, probably feeling sorry for myself. I took a deep breath. The path forward was suddenly terribly clear. Get me the rest of the information, Arthur. Find out why he's in Hawaii. This isn't just a hiding place. You said it yourself, Adam has the meetings. That's the part I'm missing. I'm here, Arthur, I said, my voice barely a whisper. $200,000. How could he? How could he let it get this bad? It gets worse, Lewis. Thorne's voice was grave. You're right about the meetings. That's the part that you're really not going to like. I gripped the edge of the heavy mahogany desk. The wood felt cold, solid. What meetings, Arthur? What did Megan mean? The $80,000. That was just to stop the bleeding from the loan sharks. That was survival. The trip to Hawaii, that's the big play, Lewis. They aren't just hiding from their old debts. They're trying to secure a massive new payday. I was confused. A payday from who? Adam doesn't have a job. Exactly. He doesn't have a job. So he and Megan invented one. My team cross-referenced the guest list at the Four Seasons with known financial conferences. There is a private invitation-only venture capital summit happening at that exact resort right now. Innovest Horizons. It's run by a major fund from San Francisco. And Adam, my son, is at a VC summit. I almost laughed. What's he pitching his expertise in failure? He's pitching you, Lewis. Or rather, he's pitching your money. The silence stretched on, filled only by the faint, distant sound of a siren far below on the city streets. Explain, I said. My voice was no longer weak. It was a command. Adam and Megan submitted a proposal to this fund 2 months ago. It's for some ridiculous buzzword-filled tech startup, Syncor Global. It's nonsense. It's a shell just like his last company. They're asking for $5 million in seed funding. On what grounds? I asked. They have no assets. They have no experience. They have $200,000 in loan shark debt. Who would give them 5 cents? Ah, Thorne said. That's the genius of their little scam. They're not pitching as themselves, Lewis. They're pitching as the sole heirs to a $50 million fortune. Your fortune. I felt the blood drain from my face. They told them about my money. No, that's the twist. They told them they are the heirs to a massive illiquid family trust. They've painted themselves as wealthy, just temporarily cash poor. They're claiming they need this $5 million bridge loan to launch their brilliant idea now while they wait for their main inheritance to be released. I was still missing the final piece. But that doesn't make sense. I'm still here, Arthur. I'm healthy. I control everything. The trust doesn't release until I'm gone. These investors would check. They would find me. Thorne took a deep, audible breath. I could hear the hesitation in it, the sound of a man about to deliver the final killing blow. That's just it, Lewis. That's why you couldn't go to Hawaii. That's why they didn't just forget your ticket. It was the most crucial part of their entire plan. He paused. According to the forged legal documents and the personal letters they submitted to this venture capital fund, you are dying. My hand went slack. The heavy crystal tumbler of scotch slipped from my fingers and shattered on the marble floor. But I didn't flinch. I just stared at the dark, spreading stain. What did you say? Your son, Louis, Adam, has told these investors that his beloved father, Lewis Morgan, is in the final stages of a terminal illness. He's at home in New York, incapacitated under full-time medical care. He's not expected to last more than a few months. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just theft. This wasn't just lies. This was a kind of murder. They were willing me dead. They were using my death, my fake death, as collateral. They have fake medical reports. Thorne continued, his voice a relentless monotone. They have a forged power of attorney document, the one Megan was trying to get you to sign, saying they have control of your estate since you are no longer of sound mind. Their entire pitch, he said, is that they are the brilliant, grieving children who want to get their company off the ground as a final tribute to their dying father. They need the $5 million now, and they've proven that the investors will get it all back, plus a massive return as soon as the inevitable happens and their $50 million inheritance is finally released. It all made sense now. The $80,000 was just the entry fee. It was the money they paid to the loan sharks to stop the death threats long enough for them to fly to Hawaii and pull off their masterpiece scam. And me, I was the star of the show. The tragic, dying father. They couldn't just leave me in New York. They had to place me there. They needed me to be the confused old man back in Queens. They needed to be able to tell the investors, "Oh, we speak to his nurses every day. It's heartbreaking. He's not really there anymore." If I had shown up at that resort, a healthy, vibrant 69-year-old man, the entire lie would have exploded in their faces. My forgotten ticket wasn't an insult. It was a necessity. It was the linchpin of their entire monstrous plan. They weren't just ashamed of me. They weren't just trying to get rid of me for a vacation. They were monetizing me. They had put a price tag on my head. I stood up from the desk. The ice in my chest had finally completely frozen over. The part of me that was a father. The part that loved, the part that hoped, the part that would have forgiven. It cracked and shattered just like the glass on the floor. What was left was not a father. It was the man who had built a $50 million company from a garage in Queens. The man who had faced down hostile takeovers and corporate raiders. The man Sarah had called her Iceman in negotiations. Louis, Thorne asked, his voice cautious. Louis, are you okay? I looked at the phone. I looked at the broken glass. I looked at the picture of Sarah, her honest, loving smile. Keep him safe, Louis. Don't let him lose his soul. It's too late for that, my love, I thought. He's already sold it. I'm more than okay, Arthur, I said, and my voice was new. It was a voice I hadn't used in 5 years. It was the voice of the CEO. I am no longer just finding out why. I am now deciding what. What do you need? Thorne asked. I need you to find out the exact schedule of their main presentation, the room number, the time, and the names of every single investor in that room. I've already got it, Thorne said. 4 Seasons Maui, Conference Room B. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. sharp. Good, I said. Now I need you to do 2 more things, Arthur, and they are urgent. First, I want you to buy my son's debt. All of it. The $200,000 from those sharks in Vegas. Pay them whatever premium they want. I want that debt transferred to a new anonymous holding company under my control. I want to be the one he owes. I want it done before sunrise in Hawaii. Louis, that's brilliant. And dangerous. But brilliant. Done. What's the second thing? I walked over to the windows, staring out at the city that was now fully dark. Book me the next flight to Hawaii, Arthur. First class. And have a helicopter waiting for me at the Maui airport. I don't want to be late for my son's meeting. I have a feeling he'll be very, very surprised to see how quickly I've recovered. I thought I had reached the bottom. I thought hearing that my son was using my fake death as a business strategy was as low as it could possibly get. I was wrong. Louis, Thorne said, his voice hesitant for the first time. There is one final item. It's the most personally violating. I'm standing in a shattered glass of scotch, Arthur, I said, my voice empty. I assure you I can't break any further. Tell me. It's about your apartment, the one in Queens. My heart clenched. The Queens apartment. The one Sarah and I had moved into in 1978. The one she had died in. The one I kept exactly as she liked it. What about it? They didn't just tell people you were dying, Louis. They decided to speed up the inheritance. 3 weeks ago, a mortgage was taken out against that property for $50,000. I didn't understand. A mortgage. I own that apartment outright. I paid it off in 1995. I know, Thorne said, which is why I was surprised to see a new lien against it. I pulled the documents from the city register an hour ago. It's a high-interest short-term loan, the kind you get from a private lender when a bank won't touch you. And Louis, the signature on the loan document, it's yours. The air left my lungs. They forged my signature. Yes, Thorne said. They forged your signature, Louis. They took out a $50,000 loan against your home, the one you live in, the place they were sending you back to with $20 for a cab. This was different. The $80,000 was a theft from my bank account. The $5 million pitch was a fantastical lie. But this was a violation. This was a crime committed against her, against Sarah's memory. They had put their greedy, filthy hands on the only thing I had left that was truly sacred. They had leveraged the roof over my head, the only home they believed I had, to fund their lies. They must have been desperate, Thorne murmured. That 50,000 was probably what they used to buy their first-class tickets, the new luggage, the bribe to get into that VC summit. They were funding their new scam by destroying your past. They thought I was so old, so simple, so senile and out of touch that I would never notice. They thought I'd just sit in my old recliner watching my game shows while they sold my life out from under me. They believed their own lie, that I was a confused old man who needed to be managed. That was the last piece. The last shred of doubt I had. The tiny lingering ember of a father's love was finally extinguished. It was snuffed out by the cold, hard fact of a forged signature. "Arthur," I said, and my voice was calm. It was the calm of the absolute zero. "I need you to find out the exact schedule of their presentation, the room number, the time, and the names of every single investor in that room." I left the St. Regis penthouse just before dawn. The doorman, Michael, held the door for me, his face impassive. "Will you be needing the car this morning, Mr. Morgan?" "No, thank you, Michael," I said, adjusting the strap of my old canvas bag on my shoulder. "I'll just be taking a cab." He nodded, not blinking, though he had just seen me emerge from the elevator, not as the CEO in a tailored suit, but as Louis from Queens. I had changed back into my costume. The old, slightly frayed khakis, the worn-out sneakers, the beige windbreaker that was 10 years out of style. This was my camouflage. This was the role they had cast me in, and I was going to play it to perfection. The cab ride from Midtown Manhattan to my little street in Queens felt like traveling between two different planets. From the sharp electric pulse of wealth and power to the quiet, familiar rhythm of working-class life. The driver didn't say a word to me. Why would he? I was just another old man, invisible, heading home. But as the cab turned onto my street, my breath caught in my throat. This wasn't just a cover. This apartment building, this red brick, 6-story walk-up. This was home. This was where I had brought Sarah as a bride. This was where Adam had taken his first steps. This was where Sarah had taken her last breath in our bedroom, with the afternoon sun streaming through the window she loved. And they had put their hands on it. They had forged my name. They had taken a loan against her memory. They had used this sacred place as collateral to fund their cheap, pathetic lies. The rage I felt was so cold, so pure, it almost made me dizzy. I paid the driver and walked into the lobby, the smell of old linoleum and my neighbors cooking filling the air. I climbed the 3 flights of stairs, my old Samsonite bumping against my leg. I pulled out my keys, the ones on the simple brass ring, not the electronic fob for the penthouse, and opened the door to apartment 3B. It was exactly as I had left it. The old recliner Sarah always made fun of. The slightly faded family photos on the wall. The kitchen small and dated but clean. It was my stage. The scene was set for my performance. I put down my suitcase and sat on the sofa. I needed to do this. I needed to check in. I needed them to believe I was exactly where they wanted me to be, alone, confused, and defeated. I picked up the old landline phone, the one with the curly cord. I dialed Adam's cell. It rang once, twice. Then he picked up. He was in Hawaii. He was in paradise, paid for by his lies. "Dad?" His voice was bright, too bright, full of that fake, strained cheerfulness. "Dad, I was just thinking about you. How are you? Did you get home okay?" I put on the voice I knew he expected. Small, tired, a little frail. "Oh, hello, son. Yes, I got home just fine. The cab ride was... It was fine." "Oh, good," he said. "We were so worried. It's just beautiful here, Dad. You would love it. The ocean. It's so blue. We're in the suite right now and the view... Wow." I pictured him standing on a balcony, the Hawaiian sun on his face lying through his teeth. That's nice, Adam," I said, letting my voice crack just a little. "I'm glad you're all having a good time. I'm just here, watching my shows." I know, Dad, I know. His voice dripped with fake sympathy. And I am so sorry about the mix-up. I still can't believe I did that. It was so stupid of me. Megan feels terrible, she really does. It's all right, son, I said. These things happen. Now for the test. Adam, I said, pausing as if I was embarrassed. Son, I hate to ask this, but you know I spent a lot of my savings on the trip, and now I'm running a little low for the rest of the month. I was wondering, could you maybe send me a little something, just to tide me over for groceries and such? The silence on the other end was electric. I could almost hear the panic flashing through his brain. He had no money. The $80,000 was gone. The $50,000 from my forged mortgage was probably already spent on tickets and bribes. Dad, he stammered. Dad, that's awful. Of course, it's just, the connection here is a little weird with the banks back home. And all my funds are tied up in the resort booking, it's complicated. Oh, I said, playing the part. No, it's okay. I understand. Don't you worry about me, son. I'll figure something out. I can go to the food pantry, maybe. No, he shouted too quickly. No, Dad, don't do that. No, just hold on. Okay, I'll get it sorted. I promise. As soon as I'm back, I'll take care of everything. Okay, I can't right now. Bingo. Okay, son, I whispered as if I was about to cry. Okay. You just have a good time. Don't worry about your old dad. Thanks, Dad. You're the best. I'll call you tomorrow. We love you. He hung up. I placed the receiver back in its cradle. The sad, broke old man act evaporated. My face was stone. He took the bait. He was completely trapped in his lie. He believed I was here in this apartment, helpless and alone. He believed I was worried about groceries while he was in Hawaii, trying to sell my fake death for $5 million. He had no idea that the loan sharks from Vegas were already off his back. He had no idea who his new creditor was. I picked up my secure cell phone from my canvas bag. I dialed Thorne. He's in the trap, I said. He believes I'm here. He's desperate for money. He has no idea I'm onto him. Good, Thorne's voice came back. The debt transfer is complete, Lewis. Apex Capital no longer owns him. You do. The wire went through 10 minutes ago. Good, I said, standing up. I walked over to my old blue Samsonite. I unzipped it. Inside, there wasn't just my old windbreaker. There was a freshly pressed, dark gray Brioni suit. Book my flight, Arthur, I said, laying the suit out on the bed Sarah and I had shared for 40 years. Book the flight to Maui. I have a meeting to attend. I placed the old plastic receiver back onto its cradle. The click echoed in the small, silent apartment. I sat there in the dark, in the quiet, in the home Sarah and I had shared. But it was no longer a sanctuary. It was a crime scene. A place where my trust had been methodically violated. The food pantry at the church opens on Thursday. I had said those words to my son, and he had let me. He had heard his father, the man who raised him, reduced to talking about charity food, and his only reaction was relief that he was off the hook. I picked up my secure cell phone. The screen cast a cold blue light on my face. I hit speed dial number 1. Arthur? Lewis? Thorne's voice was immediate. He bought the act. Hook, line, and sinker, I said, my voice devoid of any emotion. He's desperate, Arthur. He's trapped on that island with no money, and he believes I'm trapped here with even less. He thinks he's safe. His desperation is our leverage, Thorne said. The team in Vegas is standing by. The loan sharks at Apex Capital. They're willing to sell the debt. But they're not sentimental, Lewis. They want full price plus a 20% inconvenience fee. It will cost you $240,000 cash wired by morning. Pay it, I said without hesitation. Lewis, once you do this, you're no longer a victim. You're a predator. You'll be the one holding the leash. Are you prepared for that? I looked at the framed photo of Sarah on the wall, the one from our 25th anniversary. He forged my name on her home, Arthur. He used her memory as collateral for his lies. He's not just a bad businessman. He's a gravedigger. Pay the man. Pay him whatever he wants. It's done, Thorne said. I heard the click of his keyboard. The wire is initiated. By the time Adam wakes up in Hawaii, his debt to Apex Capital will be zero. His debt to LT Holdings International will be $200,000. LT Holdings, I asked. Lewis and Thorne, he replied. I thought it had a nice ring to it. A cold, thin smile touched my lips. He won't know who that is. No, Thorne agreed. He won't. Not until we want him to. I stood up and walked to my old Samsonite suitcase, the prop from my performance at the airport. I unzipped it. My hand pushed past the old khakis and the worn sneakers. At the bottom, wrapped in plastic, was my Brioni suit. Dark gray. Impeccable. The suit I wore when I closed the $50 million sale. He doesn't owe them anymore, I said quietly, pulling the suit from the bag. The fine wool felt electric under my fingers. Now he owes me. What's your next move, Lewis? Do we send a demand letter? Do we let him sweat? I laid the suit out on the bed, smoothing the lapels. I thought of Adam sunning himself on a beach, believing he was the smartest man in the world, believing his dying father was in Queens, figuring out how to buy bread. No, I said. He's at a party. It's rude not to show up. Lewis, book my flight, Arthur. The next one out of JFK to Maui, first class. And the helicopter transfer from the airport to the Four Seasons. I want to arrive in style. You're going there. He's having meetings, Arthur, I said, zipping up the suit bag. He's pitching my death to investors. I think it's only fair that his primary investor shows up to hear the pitch in person. The 12-hour flight from New York to Maui was a blur of cold efficiency. I didn't sleep. I didn't watch a movie. I sat in my first-class pod, the one that converts into a flat bed, and I just thought. I drank black coffee and stared out the window at the endless darkness. I wasn't a father flying to a vacation. I was a general flying to a war. With every hour that passed, the image of my son's face at the airport, that practiced look of pity, that $20 bill. It all hardened into something cold and sharp inside me. I wasn't just angry, I was focused. When we landed in Maui, I bypassed the chaos of the main terminal. A private representative met me at the gate. Mr. Morgan, this way, sir. I didn't go to the baggage claim. I didn't get in a shuttle. He led me to a private helipad on the far side of the airport. The helicopter's blades were already turning with a low, powerful thwump, thwump, thwump. As we lifted off the island, spread out beneath me a paradise of impossible greens and blues. The Four Seasons Resort was a splash of white elegance on the coastline. I could see the main pool, the tiny figures of guests sunning themselves. My family was down there, laughing, lying, running their con. They're in that resort right there, I said to the pilot over the headset, pointing. Yes, sir. Beautiful place. We're not going there, I said. Take me to the villa. The helicopter banked and flew inland over the sugarcane fields to a secluded ridge overlooking the ocean from a distance. We landed on a private pad next to a stunning modern glass and wood house. It was completely isolated. This was my war room. Mr. Thorne had booked it under LT Holdings. It was sterile, luxurious, and had a high-speed satellite internet connection. I walked inside. My suit bag, the Brioni, was already there, hanging in the master closet. My secure laptop was on the desk. I didn't unpack. I didn't look at the view. I sat at the desk and opened the laptop. Thorne had sent the final file. The debt transfer was complete. As of 3 a.m. Hawaiian time, Lewis Morgan, via an anonymous holding company, was the sole creditor for my son's $200,000 debt. The loan sharks from Vegas had been paid in full and were out of the picture. The file also contained the names and full profiles of the three venture capitalists Adam and Megan were meeting: John Cutler, Maria Lynn, and Ben Carter. Heavy hitters, smart, ruthless people who would not appreciate being lied to. And finally, the schedule. 10 a.m., Conference Room B. Syncor Global Pitch. I looked at the clock. It was 9:15 a.m. It was time. I showered, I shaved, I took my time. I felt the hot water wash away the grime of the airport, the memory of that $20 bill. I stepped out and looked at the Brioni suit. And then I had a better idea. I put the suit back in the bag. I went to my old wobbly blue Samsonite. I opened it and pulled out the same clothes I had worn at JFK. The faded khakis, the slightly wrinkled polo shirt, the 10-year-old windbreaker. I put them on. I slipped my old worn-out sneakers on my feet. I didn't comb my hair. I looked in the mirror. There he was. Lewis Morgan, the simple, broke, confused old dad from Queens. The man they had abandoned. The ghost they thought was haunting his empty apartment, worrying about groceries. This was the man who needed to walk into that meeting. Not the CEO. Not the millionaire. Him. I called a local cab company. I didn't use the black car service Thorne had waiting. "Four Seasons main lobby, please," I told the driver. The cab pulled up the long, immaculate driveway past the waterfalls and the perfect manicured gardens. I paid the driver, took my old canvas bag, the one from the airport, and walked into the opulent open-air lobby. People in expensive linen clothes and designer sunglasses stared at me. I was completely, painfully out of place. I looked like a lost tourist who had wandered in from the public beach. I ignored them. I walked straight to the main security desk. I put on my most pathetic, trembling voice. "Excuse me," I said, my voice shaking. "Excuse me, sir. I'm so sorry to bother you. I'm looking for my son." The security manager, a large, professional-looking man, looked at me with polite concern. "Your son, sir? What's his name?" "Morgan. Adam Morgan. He's a guest here. He's in a meeting, I think, but he's not answering his phone. I flew all the way from New York. I'm so worried something has happened to him." I let a tear well up in my eye. I clutched my old canvas bag to my chest. The manager's face softened. He saw exactly what I wanted him to see, a frail, terrified old father. "Mr. Morgan, let me check," he said, typing into his computer. "Ah, yes. Mr. Adam Morgan is currently in a private presentation in Conference Room B on the terrace level." "Oh, thank God," I whispered. Could I just peek in just to see that he's okay? I won't bother anyone. I need to see him." The manager hesitated. "Sir, it's a private meeting. Please," I begged, leaning heavily on the counter. I'm not well. The flight was so long. I just need to know he's safe." He made a decision. "Okay, sir. I understand. I can't let you interrupt, but I will personally escort you to the room. We can look through the door window. How about that?" "Oh, thank you," I said, relief flooding my voice. "God bless you. Thank you." He nodded. "This way, Mr. Morgan." We began the long walk, through the marble hallways, past the $1,000-a-night boutiques, past the smiling, beautiful people. Me, the confused old man in the windbreaker, being personally escorted by the head of hotel security. The trap was set. The predator was at the door. And the bait was me. We walked down a long, open-air hallway lined with palm trees. I could hear the faint sound of the ocean in the distance. The security manager, whose name tag read Chemo, walked slowly, matching my frail, shuffling steps. He was being kind. He was treating the confused old man with respect. The irony was almost too much. "It's just this way, Mr. Morgan," Chemo said gently. "Conference room B." We rounded a corner. There it was, a set of large dark wood doors. Through the small glass panels on either side, I could see them. My son Adam was standing at the head of a long, polished boardroom table. He was wearing his best suit, the one I'd probably paid for. He looked nervous, sweating slightly under the lights, but he was animated, pointing to a large screen behind him. Megan was sitting at the table next to 3 other people, the investors. She was smiling, laughing at something Adam said, playing the part of the supportive, brilliant wife. She looked radiant, expensive, and completely false. My granddaughter Brooke and my grandson Tyler were nowhere to be seen. They were probably at the pool, spending money they didn't have, oblivious to the high-stakes crime their parents were committing just a few hundred feet away. Chemo, the security manager, leaned down. "See, sir, he looks just fine. He's in the middle of a big presentation." "Oh, thank goodness," I whispered, clutching my canvas bag. I put my hand on the glass as if to get closer. He looks a little stressed. I really just need to tell him I'm here. Just for a second." "Sir, I really can't let you interrupt." I leaned heavily against the doorframe. I let my breathing get shallow. "Please, just 1 second. I feel a little faint. The flight, I just need to sit down." Chemo looked at me, his professional calm turning into genuine alarm. He saw an old man, pale and trembling, about to collapse. "Okay, sir, okay," he said, making a quick decision. Let's just get you inside. We'll get you a glass of water. Just sit quietly in the back, okay?" He didn't wait for an answer. He took his key card, swiped it, and quietly opened one of the heavy doors. "Excuse me, folks," Chemo said, his voice low but firm. "So sorry to interrupt. Mr. Morgan's father is here and feels unwell. He's just going to sit in the back for a moment." The presentation stopped. Adam was mid-sentence, pointing to a slide that read, "Projected revenue year 1. And with the initial seed funding, we project a 25% market capture based on... His voice trailed off. He turned his head from the screen to the door, and he saw me. The color drained from his face. It wasn't just pale. It was the white, waxy color of a corpse. He looked like he had seen a ghost. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Megan, who had been smiling at the investors, turned to see what Adam was staring at. Her smile froze, then shattered. Her eyes went wide. She looked at me, this frail old man in a wrinkled windbreaker, and her expression was not confusion. It was pure, unadulterated terror. Dad," Adam finally stammered. What, how are you here?" The 3 investors, 2 men and a woman in sharp, expensive suits, looked from Adam to me, utterly bewildered. "Adam, who is this?" The lead investor, John Cutler, asked, his voice sharp with irritation. I took a few shuffling steps into the room, Chemo, the security guard, still holding my elbow protectively. "Oh, Adam, I'm so sorry to interrupt," I said, my voice trembling. I was so worried. I got on the next flight. I had to use my emergency money. I've been looking for you all morning." Adam was paralyzed. He was trapped between 2 realities. The reality of his scam and the reality of his father standing right in front of him, shattering the lie. Megan was the first to recover. She jumped up from her chair, her face a mask of fake concern. "Louis, oh my goodness, you're here, you're not well." She rushed over to me. "Chemo, thank you," she said to the guard. He's confused. He has dementia. It's why we're here. We're trying to manage his estate. He must have wandered off." She tried to grab my arm to steer me out of the room. "Dad," she whispered, her voice a venomous hiss in my ear. Get out now." I stood firm. I looked past her at the investors. "Dementia," I said, my voice suddenly clear, no longer trembling. "That's a new one. Is that what you're telling these nice people? Is that the illness I have?" Megan froze. The lead investor, Cutler, stood up. "I'm sorry, what is going on here, Adam? You told us your father was incapacitated in New York. You told us he was in hospice care." Adam's mouth flapped open. This is a good day, a moment of lucidity. That you shouldn't be here. You're supposed to be with your nurse." "My nurse?" I asked. I turned to Chemo, who was watching this all with growing suspicion. "Do I look like I need a nurse, Chemo?" "Sir?" Chemo began, now looking at Adam. "Dad, please." Adam begged, his eyes wide with panic. We can talk about this later. These are very important people." "Oh, I know they are, son," I said. I walked past him toward the head of the table. I looked at the PowerPoint slide. "Syncor Global." I let out a small laugh. "Is that what you're calling it? Sounds very impressive. What is it exactly?" "Another shell company to hide your gambling debts." The investors all looked at Adam. "Gambling debts?" Maria Lynn, the second investor, asked. "He's lying," Megan shrieked. "He's sick. He's senile. He's making it all up. Adam, do something. Get him out of here." Adam finally moved. He lunged toward me, grabbing my arm. "Dad, that's enough. You're embarrassing yourself. Let's go." His grip was tight, painful. The same son who 2 days ago had handed me a $20 bill. "Get your hand off me, Adam," I said. My voice was low. It was the voice from the penthouse. He was so panicked he didn't even hear the change. He started to pull me toward the door. "Chemo, help me. He's having an episode." "I don't think he is," Cutler, the investor, said. He was staring at me, his eyes narrowed. He hadn't built a billion-dollar fund by being stupid. "I think he knows exactly what he's saying." "Sir," he said to me. "Who are you?" I shook Adam's hand off my arm. He stumbled back, shocked by my sudden strength. I stood up straight. I unzipped my old beige windbreaker. "My name is Lewis Morgan," I said, my voice ringing with authority. "I am the founder and former CEO of Morgan Logistics Tech, which I sold 5 years ago for $50 million. I am not sick, I am not in hospice, and I am not dying." I pointed at Adam. "That man is my son, and he is a liar, a fraud, and a thief. He is also, as of yesterday, $200,000 in debt. To me." The room was absolutely silent. You could have heard a pin drop on the thick carpet. Megan let out a small strangled sound like a dying animal. Adam just stared at me. What 50 million debt? To you?" "That's right, son," I said. I pulled my secure phone from my pocket. "Those loan sharks in Vegas Apex Capital, they were so happy to sell me your debt. I guess they preferred cash in hand to having to break your kneecaps. You now owe me $200,000. And that," I said, turning to the stunned investors, "is the real seed funding he's after. He's not just pitching you a fake company. He's trying to get your $5 million to pay back my $200,000. And also to pay for the $50,000 fraudulent mortgage he and his wife took out on my home by forging my signature." The female investor, Maria Lynn, stood up. "Forged his signature, fraudulent mortgage." She looked at Megan. "Is this true?" Megan didn't answer. She was hyperventilating, her eyes darting toward the exit. "Oh, it's true," I said. "I have the bank documents right here, and the wire transfer for the $80,000 I gave them for this vacation, which they used to pay the interest on their other debts." Cutler looked at Adam. His face was pure, cold fury. "Mr. Morgan, Adam, you told us you were the heir to an illiquid $50 million trust. You presented forged medical documents claiming your father was dying. He picked up his briefcase. You are not just a liar. You are a criminal. Chemo, get them out of here. Get them off this property. And if they give you any trouble, have them arrested for trespassing and fraud. Yes, sir, Chemo said. His kind, concerned face was gone, replaced by the hard mask of security. He moved toward Adam and Megan. No, wait, Adam pleaded, holding up his hands. It's a misunderstanding, Dad. Dad, please tell them it's just a family issue. I am Adam, I said, looking him dead in the eye. I'm telling them this is a family issue, and I am resolving it. Chemo grabbed Adam's arm, the one in the expensive suit. Another guard took Megan's. You can't do this, Megan screamed, finally finding her voice. You old bastard. You set us up. You planned this. You tricked us. Yes, I said, as they were physically pulled toward the door. I did. I wanted you to show them exactly who you are, and you did it. Magnificently. They were dragged out of the room, their protests echoing down the hall. The door shut. I was left alone with the three stunned investors. John Cutler slowly sat back down. He looked at me, this old man in a wrinkled windbreaker, and then he did something I didn't expect. He smiled. Mr. Morgan, he said, extending his hand. John Cutler, I am truly sorry for that, but I must say, that was the most impressive hostile takeover I have ever witnessed in my life. The room was absolutely silent. You could have heard a pin drop on the thick carpet. Adam just stared at me. What 50 million debt to you? Megan let out a small, strangled sound, like a dying animal. She was breathing fast, her chest heaving. He's lying, she whispered, her eyes darting between me and the investors. He must be. Adam, tell them he's lying. Adam couldn't speak. He was a statue, his face a mask of waxy disbelief. He was staring at me as if I had just peeled off my skin and revealed a monster. Lying, I said, my voice calm. I turned to the investors who were watching this all with the focused intensity of sharks that smell blood in the water. Gentlemen, ma'am, I assure you I am not the one lying in this room. I pointed to the presentation screen. Syncor Global, an impressive name. Tell me, Adam, what is it you're selling? Is it another consulting firm that doesn't have any clients? Or is this one designed to hide your gambling debts? The word hit the room like a physical blow. Gambling debts, John Cutler, the lead investor, repeated. His voice was no longer irritated. It was cold. He looked at Adam. He's delirious, Megan shrieked, finding her voice. It was high-pitched, desperate. He's sick. He's senile. He's making all of this up. We don't have any debts, Adam. Adam, tell them. Adam finally moved, but he didn't speak. He lunged. He lunged at me, not to hit me, but to grab me, to physically silence me, to drag me out of the room. Dad, that's enough, he roared, his face purple with rage and panic. You are ruining everything. His hands grabbed the front of my old beige windbreaker. His grip was tight, painful. Chemo, the security guard, stepped forward. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to. I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice. I just looked my son in the eyes, and he saw me. For the first time. He saw the person I really was. The ice, the calm, the complete and total absence of fear. Get your hand off me, Adam, I said. My voice was low. It was not the voice of the frail old man. It was the voice that had shut down boardrooms. It was the voice of the man who built the empire. He froze. His hand, the one gripping my jacket, went slack. He stumbled back a step, shocked by my sudden strength, my sudden change. I stood up straight. I slowly, deliberately unzipped the wrinkled windbreaker. "My name," I said, my voice ringing with authority, "is Lewis Morgan. I am the founder and former CEO of Morgan Logistics Tech, which I sold 5 years ago for $50 million. I am not sick. I am not in hospice. And I am not dying." I let the windbreaker fall from my shoulders to the floor, revealing my simple, clean polo shirt underneath. I pointed at Adam. "That man is my son, and he is a liar, a fraud, and a thief. He has presented you with a fake company, a fake medical history for me, and I am quite sure forged documents of an inheritance he does not yet have." $50 million, Maria Lynn, the female investor, whispered. She wasn't looking at Adam anymore. She was looking at me. She pulled out her phone and I saw her fingers fly, typing my name into Google. You. Adam stammered, his mind visibly breaking. "You, an office manager. Queens?" "Yes," I said. "I'm all of those things. I am an office manager technically. I manage my own family office. And I do live in Queens. Because I choose to. Because my wife, Sarah, God rest her soul, loved that apartment. Because I didn't want my son to grow up to be, well, to be you, Adam. A weak, greedy, entitled boy who would lie to investors and forge documents because he's too lazy to do a single honest day's work. This is..." Megan was backing away toward the wall, her hands shaking. "This is impossible." And then, as if on cue, a phone rang. It was a loud, obnoxious hip-hop ringtone. It was Adam's phone. He stared at it on the table. Everyone stared at it. The caller ID was lit up. It just showed a phone number, a 702 area code, Las Vegas. Adam looked at the phone like it was a bomb. He was sweating profusely now. I smiled. A small, cold smile. "You should probably get that, son," I said. "It sounds important. It looks like your friends from Apex Capital Ventures are calling. They're probably wondering why you're in Hawaii instead of paying them the $200,000 you owe them." Cutler, the lead investor, slammed his hand on the table. $200,000. You told us you were debt-free. You signed documents saying you were debt-free. He lied, I said simply. He's been lying to everyone. The phone kept ringing. Adam was frozen, his eyes wide with terror. He knew what that call meant. He knew the men on the other end were not the kind of people who accepted excuses. "Oh, but don't worry, Adam," I said, waving my hand dismissively at the ringing phone. "You don't have to answer it. You see, I already took care of it." The ringing stopped. Adam looked at me. What do you mean you took care of it?" "I mean I bought it," I said. "I bought your debt, all of it, the $200,000, plus the 20% inconvenience fee they charged me. As of 3 o'clock this morning, you don't owe those dangerous men in Las Vegas a single penny." I stepped closer to him. He flinched as if I was going to hit him. "You owe me now, son." He stopped breathing. I think for a second, his heart actually stopped. You bought my debt? Consider it my second investment in you. The first was the $80,000 you stole from me to pay their interest. This one is just so I own you, clear and simple. And that, I said, turning to the stunned investors, is the real seed funding he's after. He's not just pitching you a fake company. He's trying to get your $5 million to pay back my $200,000. I wasn't finished. I pointed at Megan, who was trying to blend into the wallpaper. And her, his brilliant partner. She's been busy too. She's the one who's been running up $50,000 in credit card debt. And she's also, I found out, the one who forged my signature on a $50,000 fraudulent mortgage against my home, my primary residence. The female investor, Maria Lynn, stood up. She had been on her phone. "He's telling the truth," she said to Cutler. "Lewis Morgan, Morgan Logistics, sold 5 years ago. Estimated net worth, far north of $50 million. Oh my God." Cutler's face was purple. He was a man who did not like being played. He was a man who had just been lied to, fooled, and nearly swindled by a sweaty, desperate amateur. He looked at Adam. His voice was no longer a shout. It was a low, terrifying growl. "You came into my meeting with forged documents, pretending your father was dying, to get my money, to pay off your loan sharks." He picked up his briefcase. He nodded to the other two investors. "We're done here." He then looked at Chemo, the security manager, who had been watching the entire scene, his hand resting on his radio. "Chemo," Cutler barked. "Get these two pieces of garbage out of this room. Get them out of this hotel, and have your legal team contact mine. I want them arrested. I want them prosecuted for wire fraud, conspiracy, and anything else we can find." "Yes, sir," Chemo said. His kind, concerned face was gone. He was all business. He grabbed Adam's arm. Another guard who had been standing outside came in and grabbed Megan. "No!" Megan finally snapped. Her fake sweetness was gone, replaced by the raw, ugly shriek of a cornered rat. "No! You can't do this. He set us up." She pointed a trembling, manicured finger at me. You old bastard. You planned this. You tricked us. This is your fault." "Yes," I said, as Chemo began to physically pull her toward the door. "I did. I wanted you to show these nice people exactly who you are, and you did, magnificently." "You ruined us," Adam yelled, struggling against the guard's grip. "You ruined your own son." "No, Adam," I said, my voice quiet, as they were dragged out of the room. "You did that all by yourself. I just turned on the lights." The door slammed shut, cutting off their screams. I was left in the room with the three stunned investors. John Cutler slowly sat back down. He straightened his tie. He looked at me, this old man in a wrinkled windbreaker standing in the middle of his destroyed meeting. He looked at me for a long time. Then he did something I didn't expect. He smiled. A slow, thin, predatory smile. "Mr. Morgan," he said, extending a hand across the polished table. "John Cutler, I am truly sorry for that waste of your time, but I must say, that was the most impressive hostile takeover I have ever witnessed in my life. Now, would you like a cup of coffee?" I shook John Cutler's hand. His grip was firm like dry steel. "I don't usually drink coffee after a hostile takeover," I said. "But I'll make an exception. Black, please." He laughed, a sharp bark of a sound. He respected power, and I had just shown him a kind he hadn't seen before, the kind that wears a wrinkled windbreaker. We sat for 20 minutes, the three investors and I. We didn't talk about Adam or Megan again. They were gone, erased from the room, from the deal, from polite conversation. Instead, we talked about logistics. We talked about shipping routes, about the future of automated freight. They saw my mind, the one that had built the $50 million company, and their respect grew. It was a strange, cold, and invigorating conversation. Finally, I stood up. "Gentlemen, ma'am," I said, "thank you for the coffee. I believe I have a vacation to attend to." Cutler stood as well. "Mr. Morgan, if you're ever looking to get back in the game, you have my card." "I'll keep that in mind," I said. I walked out of the conference room. I didn't ask Chemo to call me a cab. I just walked. I walked out of the opulent, air-conditioned lobby, past the perfect manicured gardens, and past the smiling valets who no longer looked at me with confusion, but with a new, terrified respect. Chemo had clearly radioed ahead. I didn't stop at the road. I walked past the line of waiting cars onto the soft grass and down to the beach path. The Hawaiian sun hit my face. It was warm, real. The air smelled of salt and plumeria. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs. I'd been holding that breath, I think, for 5 years, ever since Megan walked into my son's life. I slipped off my old sneakers and let my bare feet sink into the warm sand. It had been decades. Not since Sarah and I. This was our place. Hawaii, our honeymoon. We'd been so young, staying in a tiny beachfront motel that cost $20 a night. We'd eaten pineapple from a can and dreamed of the future. We promised we'd come back every year. We never did. Work took over. Life took over. Then, she was gone. And my son. My son had taken this sacred memory, this place that belonged to me and his mother, and had tried to turn it into the backdrop for his cheap, ugly little crime. He had tried to soil it. I walked for a long time. The anger in my chest, that cold, hard ice, began to melt under the heat of the sun. It didn't turn into forgiveness. It simply evaporated. It left me empty, but not in a bad way. I felt light. My secure phone, the one in my pocket, began to buzz. A frantic, desperate vibration. Then it stopped. Then it buzzed again. And again. I knew who it was. I knew the scene that was playing out. Adam and Megan thrown off the property, their cards declining at every other hotel. The growing primal terror of being rich one minute and utterly humiliatingly broke the next. Stranded. Trapped in paradise. I stopped walking and stood at the edge of the surf, letting the warm, clear water rush over my feet. I pulled the phone from my pocket. The screen was a blaze of panic. 14 missed calls, Adam 9 missed calls, Megan 22. New texts, I read one of them from Adam. Dad, where are you? They kicked us out. The cards aren't working. Megan is... Dad, just call me, please. Another one from Megan. You old bastard, you planned this. I will sue you for everything. You will pay for this. Another from Adam minutes later. Please, Dad, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. The kids are here, they're scared. We have no money. We're in the lobby. Please. They were breaking. They were falling apart. The entire house of cards was collapsing in real time. I looked at the buzzing phone in my hand. This little black rectangle was my connection to their lies, their betrayals, their weakness, their panic. It was the rope they were trying to use to pull me back down into their world of desperation. I had listened to them. I had given them a stage. They had performed magnificently. Now the show was over. I held down the power button on the side of the phone. The screen prompted me slide to power off. I slid my thumb across the glass. The screen went black. The buzzing stopped. The only sound was the crash of the waves and the sigh of the wind through the palm trees. I slipped the dead silent phone back into my pocket. I turned around and walked back up the beach. I left the Four Seasons behind and walked 2 miles down the coast to the private villa Thorne had rented for me. I walked in, dropped my old canvas bag on the floor, and left my poor clothes in a pile by the door. I went into the master bathroom, a room bigger than my queen's kitchen, and took a long hot shower. I shaved. I put on a pair of comfortable linen shorts and a clean white polo shirt. I walked out to the private terrace. An infinity pool spilled out toward the ocean. I sat in a lounge chair. I picked up the small phone provided by the villa. Concierge? A voice answered. Hello, I said. I'd like to order a bottle of champagne, the 96 Krug, and the ahi poke, please. Send it to the lanai. Thank you. I set the phone down. I leaned back in the chair and closed my eyes, feeling the sun on my face. Tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, I knew I would turn my phone on. I knew there would be 85 missed calls. I knew I would call Thorne. I knew I would book them 4 non-refundable middle-seat economy-class tickets home. But that was tomorrow. Tonight, I was a 69-year-old widower in Hawaii, finally enjoying the vacation I had paid for. I was alone. I was at peace. I raised my hand as if holding a glass and toasted the empty chair beside me. We're okay, Sarah, I whispered to the empty air. It's done. The sun woke me. Not an alarm clock, not the sound of traffic, just the gentle, warm Hawaiian sun streaming through the glass walls of the villa. I lay there for a long time listening to the sound of exotic birds and the distant rhythmic crash of the waves. It was the first time I had woken up in 5 years since Sarah passed and felt completely, utterly at peace. I made coffee in the villa's high-end kitchen, the kind of machine that costs as much as a used car. I took my mug out onto the terrace. The infinity pool was a sheet of perfect blue glass. I sat in a lounge chair and watched the ocean. After about an hour, I decided it was time. I walked back inside, found my secure phone charging on the desk and turned it on. It was like a bomb went off. The phone didn't just vibrate, it screamed. It danced on the polished wood desk, a furious, desperate tantrum. The screen lit up like a Christmas tree. 85 missed calls, 112 new text messages. I let it finish its fit. When it was finally quiet, I picked it up. I didn't bother with the voicemails. I knew what they would be. Screaming, crying, begging, threatening. I opened the text messages, and I read the story of their night. The first message was from Megan, sent just 20 minutes after I left the Four Seasons. 9:28 p.m. Megan, you old bastard. You think this is funny? You ruined us. I am calling my lawyer. You will not get away with this. I smiled. My lawyers, dear, are much, much better. The next one was from Adam a minute later. 9:29 p.m. Adam. Dad, please call me. Please, this is a mistake. Cutler is He's crazy. We can fix this. Dad. Please. Denial. The first stage of grief. Then the messages stopped for a few hours. They were probably in their suite, arguing, panicking, trying to figure a way out. Then the next wave hit in the middle of the night. 2:17 a.m. Adam, Dad, the hotel just called. Our cards were declined. All of them. They said the room guarantee was pulled. What did you do?